welcoming environment. And this is my shorthand. But really what we're saying is core members will feel like they are a part of a welcoming environment based on their background and identity. It asks it that specifically, and it's not just a perception we want to create. We actually want to create a reality. I don't want core members to feel like they're in a welcoming environment. I want it to because it is a welcoming environment. Like, I think that's clear, but just to be super clear. We want core members to feel like they have a sense of partnership with us in their professional development. We want them to feel like the Culture Institute focuses on student achievement. And then there's a fourth one we're going to talk about that my IMT and I, based on reflections from last year, based on feedback from our staff, said there's something missing. Last year, the cultural measures were 3. And this year there are 4. We said there's something missing. And is it Philippe? Philippe. You actually talked about sense of possibility this morning as being one of the most important core values to you, which was like 13 hours. Okay, that's good. I think that's right then. This is our IMT and I can figure this out. So we're going to talk about what these mean. And so this is to, one of the objectives was, and one of the things, you can't do anything about a goal unless you really actually know like what furthers progress towards a goal and hinders it. So like, let's just go there. Welcoming environment. Here's what we know. How do we know this? We have read all 600 staff and core member feedback. We read all of it. And there are trends. So it's not a mystery to us what drives these things. The first thing I think you should really understand, this is sort of like your cheat sheet. This is what I mean by welcoming environment. So core members and staff feel like the training is applicable to them regardless of background, and they don't feel like they're being treated unfairly because of an element of their identity. And I would say they don't feel that way because it's actually not the case. And we know typically what contributes to it. I want to give you a second to read it. I know it's like teeny tiny on your slide probably, but just sort of like read this. So this is it. Like, if you can do these things well, you're going to have a group that feels this way. If you don't, then you might not. So there are a few things that contribute to it. One, our own proficiency at actually reflecting on our biases and checking those things in our interactions with adults. If it stands to reason that bias plays out in our role as classroom teacher, it should stand to reason that bias will also play out in our interactions with adults, and is something we need to be aware of. DCA facilitated skillfully. Actually, we know, because we asked people to comment right attached to the question. DCA comes up a lot. Why? Because DCA is our forum for talking about issues of diversity. When people think about welcoming environment based on their background and identity, clearly there's a connection between those two things. And the degree to which they feel like those things were facilitated well actually has a huge impact here. The improvement plan being implemented fairly. Real or perceived, fairness in treatment of staff and core members across lines of difference, and actually having a diverse staff. We actually know that one of the biggest contributors to welcoming environment is having a diverse staff. And so one of the goals that my IMT and I share, very ambitious staff diversity goals, and every single year we've met it or exceeded it, including this year. So we went from having 18 staff members of color in 2007 to now, I think, 34. And next year we will raise it and raise it and raise it. I don't think there's a limit to where this needs to be, but I think it does stand to reason. Like if you're in a community where you don't see a lot of people around you, you just start to think, is this the place for it? Things that undermine it, well, those are the opposite of the things above. But there's a couple things I would pull out here too, which is like youth culture, kind of forgetting that we have non-traditional core members. We have core members with families. We have core members that have been in the work world for quite a long time, assuming that people are culturally and politically liberal. I think that's something that we hear a lot. Like these are basically the trends that we hear. Basically the other things are sort of the opposite. So I'm going to go through these quickly. Like I said, this is not the time to like dissect these, but more like to understand so that you can take control and know this is what's at play here. So focus on student achievement. And this really, I think, is 2 things. One, that core members feel like the right content is being taught. And 2, feeling like they are successful and actually feeling like their students are achieving, which this doesn't even need to be a feeling. It should also be quantitative for them. Like, you know if your students have achieved or not. You give the midterm, you give the post-exam, you're giving your daily and weekly assessments. So what contributes to this? We're going to talk a lot about the ISAT. Understanding the creation of the ISAT, how it was created. It's created directly as a tool to prepare students for either their CRCT or end-of-course tests. So that's one thing, like Chrissy's going to introduce you to the ISET, something we're going to revisit. But that's something, if you can know that and articulate that to core members, it really helps. That you know what flexibility exists in making modifications to the institute structures. And that training is going to come through our training on structure. So even like the example we just had, you know, a core member rightly so says, I need more instructional time with my student. There's nothing wrong with that sentiment. It can't be during a session. It could be here, here, here. If you're armed to sort of like tease those things out with people, it can be really helpful. I think what undermines it is unnecessary rigidity in executional structures and unclear connection of the talent rubric and teacher actions and student actions. And I think it's actually, it's weird. Like, maybe it's not weird. I think when core members are new, the academic impact model is actually, I think, hard for them to wrap their head around. They're like, yeah. Like, I get it. But I don't think they actually do, because you hear way too many core members say, you know, my students, like, not making the connection between, like, I need to build my skill and proficiency, and that is the thing that's going to impact student achievement. So we need to just sort of constantly remind them and draw their attention to real-world examples. You can talk about your own sort of chain of development. Okay, sense of partnership. I really want to talk about this one. One, because we made so much growth in this last year that I think it startled everyone. And I'll also say I want to focus here because in 2006 and 2007, this is the place where we really struggled. And I think synonymous with partnership, I have it on there, but if you want to write a big, treat core members like adults. No, I'm serious. I'm so serious. But still, because I will say we made so much growth, but still the number one, if there was one complaint that was repeated the most, it was this. So we made an enormous amount of growth, and yet it still came up a lot. So I'm like, okay, great, we've learned some things, we've done some things differently. Room to still bring it to a new level. You know, giving rationale for decisions in a straightforward way. Someone asks, why do we do it this way? Just tell them. You don't have to be all like TFA speaky. Just tell them. There are reasons for everything we do. Just tell them what the reason is. Sometimes there are things where actually you're like, why do we do it this way? I'll give you a concrete example. We had a lesson plan review cycle last year where 2 lesson plans were due on one day. And actually some CMAs raised, that's actually creating like weird stress for both the core members and us. Can we change it? And we were like, you know, I was like, well, let me think, like, maybe there was a reason we did this, and I think it was like, no, actually no, changed it. You know, it's like, okay, if there actually isn't a genuine reason for what we're doing, then like, we will change it. And in fact, we have. We've changed times that certain things are open. We've changed times when buses are leaving. Like, we've made modifications where it makes sense to. Treating them like adults, and literally meaning like, we're not going to use teacher strategies. There's not going to be any 1, 2, 3, all eyes on me. No, but because actually, no, that's been a really fundamental part of our institute for several years. Where, because most of us are classroom teachers, this is actually where I think a lot of skill comes in. I actually don't think this is easy at all. A lot of you are going to have to work on teacher tone. If you're using a teacher tone, if you're teaching elementary and specific, it comes through, whether you're conscious of it or not. That's something I think you're going to want to ask your SD and your colleagues to give you feedback on. Am I talking to a colleague, or am I talking to them like they're 5 years old? Am I using teacher strategies? I think there's a difference between modeling it once. You know, this is like a very technical point, but it comes up so much. There's a difference between saying, this is a attention-getting strategy I use in my classroom. I tell my students 1, 2, 3, all eyes on me, and telling them about it, and as opposed to actually using it with them. And there were some CMAs in 2007. I mean, that was something we could quickly rectify. I was like, I think it's weird. Like, it's coming off as weird. I see core members, they're doing it because they like you, but I see them shooting each other glances. It's a very easy thing to just stop. And so just sort of like, that's just an easy win. Just don't do those things. They don't like it. The core members don't like it. And I don't know what to do with it. I think being conscious of like, are you being on target? I mean, I don't know, just sort of like a simple or, is that like, are you treating them like colleagues? Are you, oh no. Are we, can I